So this morning, I just stepped out of my house to drop my son off in school. I got into the car and it was freezing. And I thought like, wow, it's time for me to dig out my gloves and my hat and my scarf properly. It's so cold. And I started driving. And as soon as I hit the main road, I had to slow down because the sun glare was so intense. It was so bright that I could hardly see. So I had to slow down. It was a 40-mile speed limit, but I was driving at a much slower speed. And I successfully and safely dropped my son off in school and got back home and sat down with a cup of tea, wondering, because something had struck me. The story of Sanjana, poor Sanjana, how much she must have struggled to cope with the brilliance of the sun god Surya. Sanjana was the daughter of Vishwakarma, the celestial architect. Even as a child, Sanjana loved playing outside. She wouldn't come back home until the sun had set, for she found the sun's rays so comforting, and she felt very happy. And she grew up to be a very beautiful and a very kind and caring girl. But she still was the same when she was outside. She loved the sun and she loved being outside. And her parents realized that she's probably been fascinated by the sun and she'd probably fallen in love with the sun. So Vishwakarma went to Surya, the sun god, and requested him to marry his daughter. But before that, he double-checked with his daughter. He called Sanjana and he asked her, "Daughter, are you sure you would be able to cope with this? Are you sure you'd be able to take the brilliance of the sun at any point in time, any season?" Sanjana was only too happy to be married to get married to the sun god. She said, "Yes, father, yes, I'm sure I can cope with this because I just love him so much." And so they were married and they started living together and they were very happy. And soon Sanjana had a baby boy who was called Manu. He was quite wise and intelligent. And time passed. One summer, the people on earth were struggling with the heat because it was too hot. They couldn't cope with it. And can you believe it? Sanjana too couldn't cope with it. She was finding it very hard suddenly. She had managed for so long, but now she was struggling. She tried to get closer to Surya, but she couldn't do that. It was too hot. The sun glare was too intense. One day Surya looked at her and he asked her to come and sit next to him. But Sanjana tried her best. She tried to get closer to him, but she couldn't really lift up her face and look at him. And she shut her eyes because the sun glare was too bright. And Surya was annoyed. "How dare you shut your eyes on me? How dare you do this? You shall have a son, Yama, the terrible, the god of death." Sanjana trembled with fear. And looking at that, Surya got even more annoyed. "You shall have a daughter as well, who will be as fickle as you are." And Sanjana had no choice. She had a son, Yama, the god of death, and Yamuna. And she was as timid and as innocent as Sanjana. And she struggled. She still struggled because she couldn't get closer to Surya, and this angered him a lot. She thought it was best for her to leave that place, but she was also worried about who would look after her husband and her children in her place. She thought, and then she summoned Chaya, her shadow, who was not going to be affected by the sun's rays or the sun's brilliance. She narrated everything to Chaya, and she requested her to take her place and look after her husband and her children. and Chaya gladly agreed. Sanjana went and lived with her father for some time and then went into the forest. She turned herself into a mare and she started doing a penance, requesting the gods to bring down the brilliance of the sun so she could cope with it and she could reunite with her husband. While Chaya lived with Surya. And soon Chaya had 3 children with Surya. She was a good wife and she was a good mother, but she did not really look after Sanjana's children very well. In fact, she started ill-treating them. And Manu, the eldest son, started doubting, is she really our mother? Why is she treating us like this? So he went to Surya and he said, Father, I don't think this lady is actually our mother. She doesn't treat us like her children. Surya thought for a while, well, okay, let me just check to see if she's really Sanjana or an imposter. And he went and he threatened Chaya, and Chaya blurted out the truth. Surya was aghast. He wanted his wife back. He wanted to see Sanjana. So he went to Vishwakarma and he told him everything. And Vishwakarma was equally shocked. And he divined that Sanjana was living in the forest as a mare and doing a penance and requesting for the brilliance of the sun to be reduced. He said this to Surya. Surya immediately requested Vishwakarma to reduce his brilliance, to chisel away some part of his body so he could reunite with his wife. And Vishwakarma did so. He chiseled away a part of Surya's brilliance, and Surya and Vishwakarma went into the forest looking for Sanjana. They found the mare, and Surya immediately went to her and said, Oh Sanjana, please get back to your original form. Your request has been granted. Your father has chiseled away a part of my brilliance. Please, I want you to get back to your original self, please. And Sanjana returned back to her original form. She was so happy to see her husband. She was so happy to be reunited with him. Surya and Sanjana took Vishwakarma's blessings and went back to the skies. Surya, Sanjana, and Chaya lived happily ever after with all their children. Thank you.